This year, it's all about the new. New decade, new faces, new expectations. And as the Cowboys are on their quest for 6, they got the same dream. Where would this team go? There's no limits to what they can accomplish. So with a fresh perspective and a new direction, the 2020 Dallas Cowboys are determined to find greatness. And it all starts this offseason, right here on The Blitz.
It's time for another edition of The Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report. Bill Jones along with Kyle Youmans as we motor on through this offseason in the National Football League. And for your Dallas Cowboys, we got a lot to get to over the course of the next half hour, including a little run from his home all the way to the Star in Frisco for young Kyle Youmans. I can't wait to take a look at that later in the show, Kyle.
Yeah, it's a fun to look back on, but I'll tell you right now, I'm still sore from the 13.4 miles. So I'm still hurting a little bit, but it'll be fun to reflect on that memory.
All right, well, let's kind of make this opening segment a run-pass option edition of the Blitz. People talk about this Cowboys offense, the effect Mike McCarthy might have, his history in Green Bay, and you look what the Cowboys did the last 4 years under Jason Garrett. And Zeke and Dak from 2016. Let's look at the numbers here. As of course, back in 2016, their rookie years, Zeke carried the load with 1,620 yards rushing on over 300 carries. Dak didn't throw the ball near as much, Kyle, as he did last year with Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator. It's going to be very interesting going forward what's going to happen with this offense, the run-pass option aspect of it.
Absolutely, and I think when you look at Ezekiel Elliott, some people tend to forget about the kind of impact that he can have on an offense, and ultimately, whenever you have guys like Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup in an offense, you're going to throw the ball quite a bit, and I expect that completely in 2020 from Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy running this offense, but don't forget how much impact Zeke has. He was top 5 in carries last year, top 5 in rushing yards and touchdowns as well. He can also open up the game from the passing game as well, 54 receptions and 68 targets. And for those who argue that he wasn't as explosive in 2019 as he has in his career, he still had 38 runs of 10 or more yards, which is top of, or at least top 10 in the league. Then you have 48 missed tackles, most in his career, and he had the most yards after catch on average in his career as well. So Zeke still brings quite a punch. You don't necessarily want Dak throwing the ball over and over again toward the later parts of games. You want Zeke to be able to close that out. Use Dak, use those wide receivers early, and then shift to Zeke to kind of put this thing on ice.
And I would caution people looking too closely at what Mike McCarthy's history was with the Packers. They did not have an Ezekiel Elliott in their backfield, although they did spend a high draft pick on Eddie Lacy about 6 or 7 years ago. He didn't really pan out, but they did have Aaron Rodgers. And you look at Dak Prescott, I think going forward, Kyle, what Dak did last year in Kellen Moore's offense bodes well for the future of the passing offense.
It completely does, and the fact of it is the fact that you look at Dak Prescott, and now that he's got no more excuses. You can't necessarily blame it on the fact that you had a Jason Witten who's not necessarily what he was receiving the football that he was early in his career. Now you can turn it around and you can throw the ball to Amari Cooper and to CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and let these 1,100-plus yard receivers do the work for you. Dak can kind of sit back, be a game manager, get the ball into the playmaker's hands, and then be successful with that offense.
All right, the key to this offense, of course, those big uglies up front. And no, we're not talking about Joe Looney, who is back bidding for the starting center spot against a rookie. We talk about that offensive line when we come back in just a moment here on The Blitz.
The Dallas Cowboys Blitz is brought to you by AT&T. Just okay is not okay. And by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club. This segment is brought to you by AT&T. Just okay is not okay.
The Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report continues now. Bill Jones with Kyle Youmans. We're breaking down this Cowboys offense, which has high hopes in 2020. And some of the big reasons why it has such high hopes, that offensive line, which has been so strong for so many years. Of course, Travis Frederick, the sudden retirement back in March. It's a replacement that needs to happen as we go forward towards the regular season. But Kyle, let's start with those offensive tackles. And I think you can make the contention that the Cowboys might have the two best set of tackles in the league in Tyron Smith on the left side and Lyle Collins on the right side.
You can definitely make that argument, but I would actually argue the other way is the fact that I don't even think they had the best tackle tandem in their own division last year, because Philadelphia had Lane Johnson and then Jason Peters to go along with it. Now, it looks as if Jason Peters is not going to return to Philadelphia. Lyle Collins is still a top 5 offensive lineman in the NFL, and he proved that last year even despite missing a game. But Tyron Smith on the backside of it, of that career that he's had, which at the moment constitutes being at least in the conversation for the Hall of Fame, he's absolutely going to have to step it up from the season he had in 2019. Some of the lowest numbers that he had grade-wise, and some of the most hurries and some of the most hits that he's given up since 2014. Smith, who missed 3 games himself last year, needs to stay healthy, stay active, and be able to anchor down that left side of the offensive line. I still think he's got a ton left in the tank. I really do. I think he's one of the better offensive linemen in the country, and he's still somebody who definitely deserves a starting spot. He's just not exactly who he used to be.
Well, but you look at this offensive line, and the most consistent performer, game in, game out, year out, is Zach Martin at right guard. So no problems there. It's going to be very interesting, the battle at left guard. Of course, Connor Williams, a former second-round draft pick coming off the knee injury last year, and Connor McGovern, who hasn't been involved in an NFL game, the third-round pick last year.
Absolutely, and whenever you look at that left guard spot, it might end up being the odd man out of the center position race, because there's so many names thrown into the center spot that there might be one left over. I still think Connor Williams probably is the best fit for that spot, but his health is a big-time question mark, and the fact that he's also somebody who hasn't necessarily played as up to his second-round caliber that he's had since he's been in the league. He's still been admirable. He's still been starting caliber, but is he going to be better than a guy like maybe Connor McGovern, who played a lot of guard during his time at Penn State?
And the biggest question mark is who replaces Travis Frederick at center. You got Joe Looney, and then you got the rookie from Wisconsin who won the Remington Award. The Cowboys traded up for the last pick of the 4th round to take Tyler Biadasz, and I cannot wait to see if he can win that job as a rookie.
I definitely think Joe Looney is still the front runner when it comes to that center spot. Over 1,400 of his 2,300 snaps in his career have come from the center position. And then you talk about the fact that he had over 1,000 snaps in 2018 when he filled in for Travis Frederick admirably. Now, he wasn't the number one replacement in terms of somebody he's not going to be an all-pro level per se, but he's somebody who's going to be able to come in, stay consistent with it, and be able to finish out at least, hopefully, a full season at the spot.
All right, up next here on The Blitz, Mickey Spagnola joins us, and he takes a look at one of the critical stretches of this Cowboys schedule in 2020.
This segment was brought to you by AT&T. Just okay is not okay.
Welcome back to The Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report. Bill Jones with Kyle Youmans, and now we are joined by Mickey Spagnola as Mickey breaks down that 2020 regular season schedule.
Thanks, guys. Well, the NFL has done it again to the Cowboys. For a 4th consecutive year, they're going to have to play 3 games within 12 days sandwiched around the annual Thanksgiving Day game. You know, this is one of the first things I look at when the schedule comes out, because this is a tough stretch to play that many games within 12 days when you're used to, on normal conditions, playing 3 games within 21 days. So this year, the Cowboys will play the Sunday before Thanksgiving at Minnesota. They'll play the annual Thanksgiving Day game at AT&T Stadium against Washington. And instead of getting that time off after having to play those 2 games on a short week, they'll have to play again the following Thursday, this time at Baltimore. So it's basically 2 road games within 12 days. And that Baltimore trip, that's a long trip heading to the East Coast. Now, if you think about this, as I pointed out, this is the 4th time this has happened in a row. And last year, when this took place, boy, they nosedived because they ended up losing all 3 games. Remember, this was a 6-4 team going into that Sunday before Thanksgiving. They had to play at New England. Playing at New England, that's one of the longest road trips the Cowboys can play. The other one would be Seattle. So you've got to travel all the way to the East Coast, upper East Coast, by the way, and it ends up being an afternoon game, late afternoon, pouring down rain. It's cold, it's windy, it's a physically, mentally draining game, and the Cowboys lose to New England, if you remember, 13-9. Then on the short week for Thanksgiving, they end up having to play Buffalo. The Cowboys ended up losing that game 26-15, and if you remember, you kind of got that feeling in the second half they probably ran out of gas. And think about it. By the time the Cowboys got back from the game against the Patriots, the charter flight landed at like 1:30, 1:45 Monday morning. By the time guys get their stuff, get home, get settled, get to bed, it's 3 or 4 in the morning on Monday, and you really can't do much from a practice standpoint getting ready for the next game. So basically you have Tuesday to get ready, and that's it. So they end up losing to Buffalo. Now that was bad enough, but again, now you got to play in 1 week's time. They have to go on the road at Chicago. Well, they go to Chicago and they get beat 31-24. So they ended up a 6-4 team at 6-7 after having to play those 3 games in 12 days. Now, the previous year in 2018, same thing, only this time 2 of the 3 games were at least at home. And that certainly helps out when you look at the schedule that way. And the Cowboys ended up winning 3 in a row during that 5-game winning streak after Amari Cooper arrived. So it's probably not as bad playing the majority of those games at home, but when you got to play 2 of the 3 on the road and having to go to the East Coast for at least one of them, boy, that's a tough road. So the good thing about doing this again this year, at least the Sunday games at Minnesota. It's a short flight, probably a 2-hour flight. They're playing an afternoon game, so at least the team gets back at a decent hour, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and have more than 1 day to prepare for the next game. So to me, when you look at this schedule, and you can talk about the start of it when they've got to play 2 of the 3 games on the West Coast against the Rams and Seattle, or how they finish having to play against San Francisco, Philadelphia in 2 of the last 3 games. Those are tough stretches, but to me, those 3 games in 12 days around Thanksgiving can define your season. Back to you guys.
Some definite obstacles along the way in the Cowboys' regular season schedule, and the Cowboys are hoping one of their draft picks is an obstacle to opposing offenses. We break down Mr. Gallimore coming up next.
Welcome back into the Blitz as we take a look at the recent 2020 Dallas Cowboys NFL draft picks. We take a look at the 3rd round selection, Neville Gallimore, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma, who looks to make an instant impact on Mike Nolan's defensive line.
With the 82nd pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Neville Gallimore, defensive tackle, Oklahoma.
I'm a guy that prides himself on effort. I just want to be the best football player, you know, best D lineman I could be. And the one thing I say that, again, I feel like sky's the limit. I feel like I'm still learning. I feel like, you know, I haven't even peaked yet.
At 6'2", Oklahoma's Neville Gallimore emerged as one of the more intimidating and durable defensive figures in the Big 12 last season. 4 sacks, 4 hits, and a remarkable 24 hurries earned all-conference honors for the senior and solidified his NFL draft stock.
You know, being a D lineman, you know, defending the run, passing, it's everything. But, you know, another aspect of that game is showing how much you care is, you know, flying to the football. You know, and also a guy who's hungry, a guy who, again, who loves the game of football, wants to show that every day.
Gallimore has been all over the map, and despite his Jamaican roots, his love for football blossomed in Canada, where he was rated the top overall prospect in the country and the first Canadian to compete in the U.S. Army All-American Bowl. But after his stop in Norman, he's now a Dallas Cowboy, and new challenges await.
Not only as a football player, but just as a man, you know, just understanding, again, going through this process, it builds a lot of toughness. You know, you just feel like, in terms of being responsible, you know, just kind of understand it's a grown man's game at the end of the day. And, you know, again, not everybody's blessed with this opportunity. Just kind of seizing the moment.
The 304-pounder will line up next to fellow Sooner great Gerald McCoy and add superb athleticism and lateral ability to the defensive tackle spot. Great value at pick number 82 and exactly the player defensive coordinator Mike Nolan wants anchoring the defensive line. Reporting for the Blitz, I'm Kyle Youmans.
Gallimore comes in as an individual who is very adamant about stopping the run, and then also just about that hustle and that passion that comes with playing the sport of football, something that I know the entire defense will definitely take a hold of and mimic on that side of the football. When we come back, we'll wrap things up here on this edition of The Blitz.
The Dallas Cowboys Blitz was brought to you by AT&T. Just okay is not okay. And by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
Good morning, Cowboys Nation. I know I'm off to a little bit of a slow start, but it is CeeDee Lamb payoff run day. 4 or 5 miles. The bet was that if CeeDee Lamb fell to the Cowboys and they selected him at pick 17, that I'd run from my apartment complex in Little Elm to the Star and back. I'm a man of my word, and I'm going to keep it up, and I'm going to run to the Star and back.
Tunnel screen, CeeDee Lamb trying to get outside, and does. CeeDee Lamb stays on his feet, and he will go the distance.
I can see the promised land right beneath those cranes.
Hurts to throw, and he swings it out to Lamb, makes a guy miss, and scores! Touchdown, Sooners!
6.67 miles down, not that much to go, on the way back from the Star in Frisco. Here we go.
And there goes Lamb, past the 30, making a house call, a punt return for a touchdown.
You have no idea how much I want to just go and jump into that lake and just sit there. No, gotta finish strong.
Winds up down the field.
It's finished. The CeeDee run 2020, 13.2 miles. Is complete. I'm gonna eat a big old lunch, sleep for a little while, and maybe never run again in my life.
Oh my, I am so impressed. Kyle Youmans, how did you do it? And how do you feel now here 4 days later?
It took a lot because I'm not like the epitome of fitness by any means. I love my fried chicken and my Tex-Mex, no doubt about it. So the fact that I went out and ran, it took a lot of mental toughness, I guess, is probably the only thing I'm going to chalk that up to. And I'll tell you right now, physically, I feel terrible. And it's been like a half a week since I ended up running those miles as well. But hey, if that's the sacrifice that needs to be made for a player like CeeDee Lamb to fall, I'll be that.
All right. Well, we wrap up this week's edition of The Blitz with Ambar Garcia's tribute to the number 88. See you next week.